Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Boys, I got to take full responsibility. I remember sending a tweet out saying that I was ready to deep dive 137 teams of the FBS college football level. And of course, one brave, one rich FCS program looked me in the eye over on Twitter and said, "Hold my beer." Welcome, everybody, to College Football Red Zone, your exclusive source for 7+ hours of commercial-free college football, at least for those Saturdays in the fall. But for right now, as we get into this passive part of college football season, we got to still have a jam-packed show here tonight. We're going to talk about the fallout from another FBS program joining us. We now are sitting at 138. But then on top of that, we have an opportunity to jump into the mailbag, some questions that you asked in the last live show over on other social media networks as well. Answer some of your guys' questions here tonight. I'm joined by my co-hosts Reed and AT. Boys, how we doing tonight, man?
I think Reed's
stack to the Mac. Stack to the Mac. Let's go. Let's go.
I feel like that is not how Reed actually feels about this right now. So.
You couldn't tell the sarcasm in my voice?
Sack to the Mac. I mean, I'm not hating it. I don't like the Mac move, but that stuff we'll get into. Other than that, it's been a pretty decent week for me here. So it's a month.
Yeah, and we have a lot to get into tonight. We're talking about Sack to the Mac, which sounds like a pretty catchy hashtag, if you ask me. We also have some questions that we need to answer on the mailbag. But first and foremost, gentlemen, we started, I feel like a couple weeks ago. We were sitting at 136. And then now we find ourselves in a spot, our second FCS program making a jump to the FBS. Welcome, Sacramento State, not joining the Mountain West, not joining the Pac-12. The Conference USA, nowhere to be found in the process. But MAC football, man. Sacramento State joining MAC football. And I know, Reed, we were talking about before the show start. I know you got some opening thoughts. I could see it in your eyes.
I mean, literally, I wrote a whole article about this. Regionality in college football is dead with this move. It is officially dead. You thought all the former Pac-12 schools going east to the ACC and the Big Ten? No, it just gets worse. Sacramento State is joining the MAC, where their closest conference opponent is over 2,000 miles away. And they're going to be playing conference games.
It sucks because the MAC was like the one conference we had left where everybody was like at least in a little bubble there. You know, we felt like that was some regional, and now they've just completely bursted that and brought in Sacramento State. So like you said, Reed, regionality is dead 100%.
Yeah, and also the fact that they're paying over $23 million to join the MAC. if it was the Mountain West or the Pac-12, I would actually understand that because those are like upper tier conferences in like the G6 realm. But the MAC, I'm sorry, 23 mil. And I also just saw on Twitter literally before we started the show that they're also paying for every conference opponent to fly out there. They're paying $2 to $4 million for every opponent that they're hosting in the MAC. Like, what are we doing, bro? What are we doing?
What are we doing is a great question. One good thing that does come out of this, which I will say, and V-Dub automatically put it in the chat here, we will get the Ball Stack Bowl game, right? Which is going to be hilarious. So at least we get that, I guess. Maybe that was the whole move. I guess you spend $23 million for a meme, but other than that, I'm not really sure what the point was.
Yeah,
so.
it also makes me wonder. I mean, the amount of money that Sacramento State was throwing around in order to make this FBS opportunity a reality, and thinking about how uninterested both the Pac-12 and the Mountain West had to be in terms of, you're talking about $18 million that's going to be infused into your conference. It would be distributed out and for your other league members, and those conference affiliated offices, they looked them in the eye and said, nah, we're good. Even though it would actually make geographical sense to include this team into that conference. And what happened to the Conference USA? I was very surprised that we saw nothing from the Conference USA, and they may still be working some things behind the scenes, because this time last year we saw the Conference USA release their schedule in the first week of February. So if we were going off of historicals, they're a couple weeks late there over for the Conference USA as well. So it makes me wonder if the CUSA, were they getting involved behind the scenes? Are they still having those backdoor conversations? Well, it's really fascinating, because this is not the first time in terms of this decade that we've seen multiple teams from the FCS level make the jump up to the FBS. But in this particular cycle, it feels different compared to what we've seen even just a couple of years ago. Don't you guys think?
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, I feel like the Conference USA was the premier, G5 forever. It just always felt like they were kind of the ones on the rise. Now the Americans kind of taking that over, but there's still a lot of good programs in the Conference USA. I feel like that's what everyone wanted to join. You saw Delaware do it not too long ago. I'm not really sure what's going on down there, but it's interesting. And really, that's like the only conference that really can claim anyone across the entire country, because they're the Conference USA. That is just the United States of America right there. So regionality doesn't even have to fit for them. But I'm surprised we're not seeing them make bigger moves than this. They're not making any moves right now, and it's they're quiet, which is uncharacteristic for that conference.
I was ready for the announcement later that CUSA was going after like Tarleton State or something like that. I was ready for the tweet, but I am kind of surprised that the Mountain West or the Pac-12 didn't bite at this, at least if there was around the same amount of money. I'm surprised they didn't bite at it, because you have to think they're getting all the revenue from their conference games. You're going to get a portion of the revenue from their new stadium that they're building, which is going to be nearly 25,000 seats. So I don't know how much they're adding, but they're going under a huge renovation of their stadium, which you'd think they get some portion of the funding from that. It's also just regionality. It works. That's the biggest gripe I have with this whole thing. Why are you joining a conference that, again, your closest conference opponent is over 2,000 miles away, and you're also paying north of $20 million to do it? It literally just makes no sense. Now, I do understand from the perspective of, if you were to stay an FCS opponent and you play a bunch of FBS teams, you're only getting $700,000 to $800,000 out of it. But if you jump to the FBS level and then play an upper tier FBS team, so say Sac State goes and plays USC out of conference, for example, you're getting 1.2 to 1.5 million. So you're automatically getting a profit just jumping up and then going to play the similar non-conference games. But
and that's a fascinating point as well, because I'm really curious to see how Sacramento State, now that they have officially made this jump over to the FBS level, what is their schedule going to look like moving forward? Because they already have, so we do have the Fresno State game coming up, which means, I'm going to have to go and retroactively adjust my strength of schedule rankings, because I always give an FCS program like a default ranking no matter what. So that's just something a minor gripe that I have on my end, because of course, I can't have a not so busy off season, right? But this is a program that not only did they schedule Fresno State, they scheduled 6 other FCS games. So I would imagine, one, who do they end up going for in the non-conference play? And then also secondarily, do they end up playing a full MAC schedule? Or is it going to be one of those situations because they chose to jump to the FBS level? Really, we're talking about 6 months before the season starts, which sounds like a long time, but in terms of putting together a schedule, a full-fledged schedule, that's not a lot of time to get all of that figured out. So I'm really curious to see how does the MAC lead office, how do they handle Sacramento State? Do they give them a full conference schedule, or if it's just a partial one here in year number 1, as well as on Sacramento State's end, who do they go for in terms of future opponents? I imagine they're not going to have 6 FCS teams on their schedule, especially if they have to go play a full conference schedule.
Yeah, that's going to be the most interesting thing, is to see what their conference, like where they shape up with their teams and who they're playing. Obviously, they're going to want to get some big FBS schools. The craziest thing to me is I don't think it makes economical sense here, because, and I started looking into it and reading some of the stuff that Luke Wood, the guy that kind of, kicked off all the stuff for them, their commissioner, if you would say, or their president is what he is. And he was talking about money, and they brought in a consulting firm, which I think consulting firms are the death of everything in America. And they said, and I just wrote this down because I think that this is BS. I do not believe this statement whatsoever. They said that they think joining the FBS, yet again, only as a football team, is going to help them generate $250 million annually. They said that within the next 5 years, they expect to make $975 million off of this move. There's no way. If you're talking about, Texas struggles to make that kind of money annually from a football program standpoint. There's no way that Sacramento State is going to come in here and generate that kind of revenue. I just don't believe it. The MAC distributes like $1.5 to $2 million to a team per year. You might get a couple extra million playing some big FBS schools, but to me, the economics just don't make sense when you're spending $23 million. There's just no way they're getting a return on investment here. And that's just from a business standpoint. And so to me, that's the first red flag, is like, I don't understand the move purely from economics, which is obviously why they're doing it. Unless if they just got sold on some consulting firm that just, put out a spreadsheet and threw some big numbers on there and everybody got bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on it. I'm not really sure what else they're trying to do here, because I just do not believe they're going to be making $250 million.
Yes, that's the comment I want you to put up. What is a consulting firm?
What are they consulting?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I will
That's
say
good.
this though, because I think this is going to be very fascinating to follow, because USC is the only power conference team out there that doesn't have a full schedule yet. They're still looking for one more team, and because of the fact that they do have multiple buys on their schedule, that leads me to suggest that they're interested in playing a weak 0 opponent that hasn't been determined yet. And given the gripes that we've had at our sport in terms of how strength of schedule is handled, I'm very curious to see if USC decides to target Sacramento State in terms of bringing them to the Coliseum for a season opener. And for Sacramento State, that would be that season debut. But I'm going to say this as well. I think the team is going to have to really prove itself. They finished 7-5 last year as an FCS independent, so they're not exactly coming in dominating, and not saying that they're going to be down forever. Kennesaw State had 2 rough years at the FCS level before jumping up to join Conference USA. They end up winning Conference USA in their second year in the league. But that is something that I'm very curious to see how Sacramento State handles themselves, since going through some of the deep dives, they were rated a little bit in the transfer portal. So there's going to be some young guys on the roster that are going to have to step up and be productive if they're going to be competitive in year number 1, even in the MAC.
For sure.
It definitely is an interesting dynamic, because like you said, Jake, they were rated pretty highly with their transfer portal acquisitions. But to the point that AT made about, return on investment, I don't really think they've made great return on investment on the field. And I mean that by they haven't even kept a head coach over the last 5 years, more than 2 seasons. Troy Taylor he basically brought all their modern success since 2019, 3 conference championships, 3 FCS appearances during his time there. And then he up and left. Andy Thompson was okay, 11-14 record, brought them to another FCS playoff appearance as an at-large team. But Brendan Marion was there for 1 year, that 7-5 season last year, and then left to be Colorado's offensive coordinator for this coming season. So it's going to be really interesting. And especially they're bringing in Alonzo Carter, who doesn't have much head coach experience. He has a head coaching experience at Contra Costa Community College for 6 years, where he went 47-27. And that's his only head coaching experience. Everything else was as an assistant coach. So he's been highly touted as an assistant coach and a running back coach primarily. But it's definitely, there's a lot of turnover going on right now with Sacramento State on the field. So just speaking on return on investment, I literally have no idea what that return on investment on the field is going to be. Also, just a fun fact that I found out about Alonzo Carter. He used to be a backup dancer for MC Hammer, which I thought was really, really funny. So, yeah, Jake, I have no idea what they're going to be on the field right now, and even in their coaching staff at the moment.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, maybe, to your point, Reed, maybe they do make the step up, because if you got guys leaving, obviously they got money. They're about to spend a buttload to just move up. But if you got guys leaving, just go be an offensive coordinator at a school like Colorado State, because it feels like it puts them in a better position to go get better jobs. Maybe that is a reason. We can kind of play devil's advocate on both sides here and say that, we do want to be an FBS, so we have that brand. Dr. Wood, or Luke Wood, the president, he kept making the statement that they want to be a flagship university. They're trying to brand themselves out of state, which I agree with. I just don't think that this is necessarily the time or the way to do it, I guess. And he kept saying, one thing that he said that I really disagreed with was, he said, everybody says that North Dakota State did it the right way, but we don't have time to win 10 championships to get there. I mean, I agree with that statement, but at the same time, I don't agree with that sentiment. You still need to develop and get your team in some level of consistency before you start making these type of moves. The one thing that I do really agree with, and he said that the biggest part, the best part about it, is that his players are pumped to be in the game next year and to be a part of CFB 27, and we'll get to play with Sacramento State. So that is cool. And I do agree with that. Other than that, I'm not really just loving the move. I love to see another team at FBS. We can watch more football. Love the MAC. Not necessarily pumped at the way they did it, though.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting moving forward if we start to see a larger exodus of FCS programs make the jump to the FBS before it starts to really become a lot more expensive for these programs to make that jump. I mean, we saw this with SMU making the jump to the ACC and really forfeiting their media rights revenue from the ACC TV deal in order to be part of that conference. Memphis tried to throw $200 million at the Big 12 to join that conference. They were rejected, but that was what they were willing to make a jump to a power conference. And then what we just saw recently with North Dakota State, they're suffering a $15 million drop in their finances to join the Mountain West, which actually does make sense from a geographical standpoint. Reed, I know that's something that really tickles your pickle in particular. And then Sacramento State most recently, $23 million. That's a lot of money for a university in a time where many institutions out there, they're having a hard time in terms of staying financially solvent. So I wonder if it's a situation where maybe we do see the schools that are capable of moving up from a financial standpoint, they make that jump, because in the next 5 to 10 years, it might be impossible for most FCS schools to go do, even if they're successful on the field.
Yeah. And are we going to put a cap on this thing, or are we going to look up in 10 years and have 300 FBS programs and it never stops? I mean, if as long as people are willing to spend money, I guarantee you these conferences are willing to accept it. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. AT, you forget we have no structure in this sport and no one running it. You forgot that.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're going to have to go to the European model here soon, where teams that are bad are just going to get relegated back to the FCS.
We have to.
Yeah,
I want to actually just real quick, that comment by V-Dub, that is a benefit of this. We get a 7:00 MAC game in like Ohio, and then we go to Sacramento for a 10:30 MAC kickoff. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that I think that's the biggest plus side. Like aside from the ball sack rivalry game that I think we're really hoping does turn into fruition. If Ball State and Sacramento State they don't play each other, or we don't see Sacramento State playing UMass during conference play, that's really a lost opportunity by the league office. But either way, we should have an opportunity to see maybe some after dark action, which will be new. It'll be fun for sure. Even though it's something that we vehemently disagree with from a regionality standpoint. We got a burning question here from our boy Colden over in tuning in tonight. Long time listener, first time caller. Which of the free hosts would make the best commissioner? So I'm not going to vote for myself because that would be a little too cocky. I would roll with Reed. It seems Reed is a lot more he's a lot more convicted in his feelings about regionality. So I'll give Reed a shot first, but I would obviously have to listen to both candidates in terms of what they stand for on the platform and make a informed decision from there.
I mean, I go Reed too. I just want to see our commissioner get pissed off at some stuff, So I mean, if anything, we'd have some interesting press conferences. So I'm all for it. All for it.
Boys, I appreciate that. I would stand on business. Let's just say that. I would stand on business. Whatever comes out of my mouth is coming to fruition. Let's just say that. If I had to pick between the three of us, I'm going with Jake. I mean, his title is the CEO. Like, how can we not go with the CEO as the commissioner? Like, come on. The dude's wearing an NFL Jam t-shirt. Who doesn't want that as their commissioner? Are we kidding?
Hey, listen, I told this is the early birthday present. Birthday's coming up. So I told the wife I would wear this on the show tonight. So I got to stand on business. Last time I got a shirt like this, it was like an MLB version. It was with like Nick Castellanos and Jesse Winker for the Reds, and the next offseason they both got traded. So hopefully that doesn't mean Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase actually get traded before the next NFL season. If that does happen, then that just means I'm cursed. But we still have some burning questions here tonight that don't even pop up in the chat randomly. We got some questions that you guys sent in, whether it's from the last live show, whether it's from other social media. So you're going to want to definitely tune in for anything and everything. If you guys are watching, I really appreciate watching us here on a Monday night. Happy President's Day, by the way, for those that get a free day off, and if you're watching right now, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, jumping into really a question that popped up on the last live show. So this question popped up while we were talking about the Pac-12 conference and talking about our biggest winners and losers from that schedule being revealed. So 1993 Muff, I don't know if he's watching tonight, but if you are, but sir or ma'am, we got you. What new rivalries do you think will develop in the Pac-12? So when I was thinking about this, I was really thinking about it from a regionality standpoint. I know that's a really big deal. I'm really thinking about Boise State developing a rivalry with Oregon State and Washington State as well. Not just from a regionality standpoint with Boise State, being in that Pacific Northwest, being around there, close to Oregon, close to Washington, Idaho as a state seen as a little brother to both of those West Coast states from an economic and influential standpoint. But at the same time, it could be seen as I want to say almost a possible changing of the guard, because you think of just a few years ago, Oregon State and Washington State unquestionably members of the Power Five, and you look at both of those programs, and while they haven't been the type of programs that have dominant success year in and year out, you also can't tell the college football story without those two programs as well. That being said, Boise State having more success recently, making the college football playoff, more playoff appearances than both those programs combined, makes me wonder if we see a changing of the guard between, the old Power Five in Oregon State and Washington State, and then Boise State. Can they walk into this new Pac-12 and dominate this conference? It's definitely something that I'm going to be watching for, and I think we're going to see some intense rivalries between those three schools, almost a triangle of hate, I would even venture out to saying.
For sure. For sure. I mean, I've kind of got a couple teams I feel like would be interesting to watch. You want to see Oregon State and Washington State just because they're the two that have been there. But I mean, they've almost got mutual respect for each other at the same time. I mean, are they friendly or do they hate each other? It would be cool to see them kind of build a rivalry out of that, just because they're the last two teams remaining. But I mean, I like to keep it in within the state bounds here, and we got Fresno and San Diego State. They're kind of, I don't know how close they are. I don't know California that well, if I'm being honest, but I do know that both these schools are close enough to form a rivalry. I know, speaking from my own experience, Starkville and Oxford are not terribly far from each other, but they're not close either. And we hate them. We hate each other, and it makes the game fun to have in-state rivalries. And so I think that's kind of one of the best things for me. That's what I'd be looking for is to keep the rivalries within the bounds of your state, because it makes it fun when you got people to hate that live next door to you.
I completely agree, AT. I also had San Diego State and Fresno State on there just solely because not even on the field rivalry, but also like recruiting. They're going to be recruiting probably the same exact players regionality wise. So I definitely had them on my list. I mean, one of the main points I put down was Texas State being a wild card in this situation because they are the furthest team regionality wise. So going along that same sentiment of, keeping rivals primarily close to each other, Texas State obviously is the outlier here. I kind of put maybe Texas State and Colorado State or Utah State just solely because those are similar outlier teams like Boise State. But again, we just have to wait and see really with Texas State if there were to spark a rivalry with another team, just solely because they are so far out there compared to their conference opponents.
I do love a Texas State versus San Diego State, because you kind of have, for whatever reason, California and Texas seem to hate each other. Yeah. And so I do love the fact, and they both got some pretty cool jerseys, if we're being honest. So the battle of the jerseys there. One other thing I did write down was Texas State and Washington State, because they're the two cats in the program here. So who is the better cat? We got the Bobcats versus the Cougars. Who is the big cat of the group, I guess.
Yeah, no, Texas State was certainly a team that I was eyeing as well, and I'll say this about San Diego State: those helmets are absolutely tremendous as well. But I mean, I know that AT, you touched on San Diego State and Texas State possibly being a rival because of how California and Texas historically have hated each other. And while I don't expect us to reach to a level of hatred that Texas State and UTSA have for each other, for those that follow the I-35 rivalry, like down there in that part of the country, Texas State and UTSA, like you think that Ohio State and Michigan hate each other. You think Ole Miss and Mississippi State hate each other. These two teams, they genuinely hate each other. Like it is on a personal level, seen on unlikely like that we've never seen. I think Texas State and Fresno State would be interesting as well, because it also kind of plays into that California versus Texas pipeline that you talked about, AT, as well. I'm curious about Utah State and Colorado State going at it against each other. Both in mountainous parts of the country. Maybe a little bit of G5 supremacy in terms of who's the better G5 state, Utah versus Colorado. So it's going to be really fun to see this cycle through like 3 to 5 years, as well as what about some things that happen on the field? We can see some wonky things happen on the field that create rivalries out of it. I mean, you never know what can happen when we're talking about a Pac After Dark special. It's literally anything is on the table when you're talking about Pac After Dark.
The rivalry is going to be born in that flex game too. That you got a team that beat you once in the regular season, you got to go play them again. That flex game is going to build rivalries, no doubt about it, which is going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't know what hits better, late night Maction during the week or late night Pac-12 after dark. I don't know what hits better. Well, I guess we'll find out. The real if Hawaii was in the Pac-12, then we're talking. But I mean, they're still going to be playing late night in the Mountain West. So, we'll see. It's going to be intriguing.
They don't care about their students, because they're going to have them packing up for school at Tuesday night to fly across the country. So they, classes, we're not here to do school. That's for sure.
Yeah, really the quintessential Cardell Jones approach back when he was finishing up his college career and starting his NFL journey, just talking about, I didn't go to Ohio State to play school. I came there to play ball and ball only. And that's really encompassing what we've seen in like some of these conferences today. Like it is not as bad as a football guy, because you do tend to have the best travel resources, but I feel bad for these non-revenue sports, going from now Sacramento to, I know it doesn't apply for football, but even for like the ACC, for example, like talking about going from Palo Alto, California, and flying all the way out to Boston for a conference game.
It's crazy. In the middle of the week too, and a lot. I mean, yeah, just insane. I mean, how do you study or get any school done?
Yeah,
it's you're just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that I agree with you, Reed, and ATV. The flex game is going to create a rivalry too, especially if we have a situation where there's a Pac-12 team that is in the hunt for a college football playoff spot late. And while it doesn't count towards the final conference record, seeing someone possibly getting kicked out of that conversation because of a loss that they take from a flex game that is selected by the conference, because the conference reserves the right to move matchups around to try to create the most compelling matchups possible to boost these resumes up. We're going to see something come out of it. It is going to be some nasty work if it happens because of a flex game.
No doubt.
It's going to get chippy. It's going to get chippy for sure.
Which is what we love. I mean, I will say the Pac-12 is at least bringing back some uniqueness to college football, which is what we desperately need now. And I'm excited for that flex game. I'm excited to see some teams hate each other out there.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see what we get in terms of the Pac-12 rivalries moving forward. Bare minimum, what we can say is at least like the Pac-12, they're all better academically gifted than Akron. At least we don't have anyone out there in the West Coast that is dealing with some APR restrictions. We'll see if that applies to this upcoming season as well. But yeah, with that being said, boys, really appreciate everyone coming through on the live show tonight. Hopefully you guys are enjoying yourselves on this full spring worthy Monday night, depending on where you're living around the country. Hopefully you're enjoying the live show. If you are, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you do happen to be brand new, we got one more question here on the live show, going all the way from the land of TikTok. So shout out to TikTok for sending this question in. So this was right after the North Dakota State news broke, before we had after we had our last mailbag. So this is from Dominic Natoli from TikTok. So we're going to be able to reply to you. Knowing that North Dakota State is going to the FBS, can a team like Ferris State and or Grand Valley go to the FCS to balance things out? So I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what the Missouri Valley does, especially with the threat of South Dakota State possibly leaving, or North Dakota and South Dakota possibly leaving as well. Because I know the traditional school thought was if North Dakota State left, at least one of those other three would also leave in short order too.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. This one to me is kind of hard to even talk about. I'm to be completely honest, ignorant to the way that the FCS and D2 programs work and who's the powerhouse and what are they trying to do. I don't know if it's a money grab or how they're going to bring teams up. This is where the European model would work so well. Let's just bring the best teams up into the next group. Let's relegate some teams. I mean, looking at it, if we're trying to keep everything within the region, then yes, these two teams make the most sense because they're Michigan teams that come from that area, and I feel like they would fit. But if we're talking, like Reed said at the beginning, got a whole article about it, regionality is dead in college football. Let's just bring the best teams up. I think Ferris State's one of them, but Harding out of Arkansas is another really good school that had a really good D2 year. And I could see them potentially moving up. And I actually had a buddy that went to that school there. It's an expensive school. They actually have a decent bit of money. So I could see somebody like that moving up as well. But I do feel like the FCS is the conference or the whatever you want to call it, the group left that does keep regionality within it. And I hope they don't change that. So I really don't want to see a Harding go join the GLIAC or whatever, or leave the GLIC. But it's like I said, it's kind of an ignorance for me to even give an answer here that's a good answer because I don't know what they're going for in the FCS, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, I can at least confirm you won't get teams paying north of $20 million to make the jump from the D2 to FCS. I can guarantee you that. So
Yeah.
at least we won't see that. I feel like, I mean, I similar to AT, I literally have no idea how it would work from D2 to jump to D1, the FCS level. I have no idea how that would work because I feel like you need to have an established, baseline of competitiveness, success over like criteria over like the last 10 years or something, for example. Like, I feel like you need to have that baseline. You can't just say, oh, we're just making the jump out of nowhere. That's like saying D3 junior out of college is now joining the ACC out of nowhere. Like, you can't just jump like 3 levels because you want to. So I honestly have no idea.
No
Yeah,
idea.
and seeing like a football program jump multiple levels up in one going, that's extremely unprecedented. I know the only time that, at least in my lifetime, that I've seen this happen is with St. Thomas, where they were so dominant out in the Division 3 level that they were kicked out of their own conference because the other teams in their conference, they didn't want to compete with St. Thomas, so they were able to make the jump up to the FCS level because of that. But because of that as well, instead of serving, the 2-year probationary period that we're accustomed to seeing where a team makes the jump up or down one level, they're serving a 4-year probationary period as well because they're making multiple jumps at the same time. But going back to your original question, I think it will be fascinating. I don't think it will happen over the course of this cycle because we're already closing in on the month of March and we haven't heard any significant movement, but that might be something to watch in the next few years, especially if Ferris State continues to have a tremendous amount of success. They're certainly been one of the best programs at the Division 2 level. Grand Valley on a similar level, they haven't been as successful recently as Ferris State, but Grand Valley, also a tremendous program in their own right, and would have served beneficially well for the FCS as well, because there's currently no FCS programs in the state of Michigan right now. So what that would do is it would open up Division 1 level recruiting for the FCS, because as of right now, you have the G5, and then you have a massive gap. So you have guys in the state of Michigan that are kind of teetering. Are they FCS guys or are they FBS guys? They tend to go to the Division 2 level. Now they have an FCS program that they can go to, knowing that Ferris State or in Grand Valley is out there too. And another program that I'm also keeping an eye on, not necessarily for the Missouri Valley because it just wouldn't make any sense, Colorado School of Mines. They've had a lot of success over the past few years as well. Interesting mascot, and their offense has been really a joy to watch, especially on the ground. Really think like your armies and your navies and inject them with steroids. That's their offense.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, Jake, I don't think we're going to see any moves like this, especially this year. And I mean, obviously they're not going to be spending buku dollars to get up and move out of the FC or out of the D2 right now. It will be interesting. I feel like we could see these moves happening here shortly. I mean, why not? They're already doing it from the SCS to the FBS. Why not see some D2 teams move up as well to replace what they're losing? But I feel like what we'll more likely see is more FCS schools moving into that conference instead of them replacing them with D2 teams. That's kind of what I would think. I think they're going to try to make a power conference like we have in FBS level. So,
yeah, I agree. I don't see any more movement as of right now. It's kind of getting too late for it. Like Jake said, we're almost to the start of March. Like, schedules have to be finalized at least pretty soon. So I don't see any more movement, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so yeah, it will be interesting to watch at least in the next few years, and another couple of schools to definitely keep an eye out for. That Colton also mentioned out in the chat about Valdosta State, like out in Georgia, like that's been a really good program as well, a top Division 2 program. West Florida as well, one they got an incredible logo, and they're really starting to ascend. They're pouring resources in, so they might be making a move to become a Division 1 program as well. But I hope that these moves, if they do happen, it's made with still regionality in mind, because unlike what we're seeing at the highest level of college football right now, these other levels are at least still maintaining it, with a couple exceptions. The Pioneer League, you got teams all over the place. Like the Dayton Flyers are in the league for the Pioneer, and so is San Diego. So they're in the same conference. It's been like that for years. So it'll be fascinating to see what moves happen and what kind of domino effects we get as a result of what we're seeing right now with North Dakota State as well as Sacramento State making a jump up to the FBS level here tonight.
I also don't know. I think Division II scholarships are quite different than D1. So I think that would be something else that they would have to figure out as well. It would be really tough for them to make that jump. That would be probably the toughest thing, is to figure out how they can level out their scholarships and keep it fair. Because I mean, that's what the whole NCAA and everybody, they regulate that pretty strictly. So I don't really. There would have to be a lot of people a lot smarter than me in the law side of it to figure out how to make that move. So yeah, it would be tough. I don't think we'll see that for a while, honestly.
Yeah, and that's another thing too with the Division II scholarships. It's a bigger jump to go from Division II up to Division I FCS than it is to go from Division I FCS up to Division I FBS. Not just because of the scholarships, but also the number of sports that you have to support as well for both genders. And that's something that might hold back Montana and Montana State for a while. Because I know for FBS programs, we're talking about having to support at least 16 sports between the two genders. And I think both are sitting at 14 right now. So Montana State certainly capable of going up to either the Mountain West or a Pac-12 and competing right away from a football standpoint. But not only do you have to pour additional resources to pay your way, to pay for the standard FBS fee as well as pay the conference itself, but you're also going to have to pour resources into creating two other sports, one for each gender. So that might be like a sticking point for some of these administrations around the country. It's going to be really fascinating to see how things shake out. But yeah, for Ferris State and Grand Valley, I don't see them moving up this year, but maybe someone to keep an eye on in the next few years, especially if they continue to dominate at Division II level, though.
I think AT needs a consulting firm. By the way, I think AT needs to find a consulting firm.
Maybe I can just start one that actually does good work here. You know, we get paid to do a job, and we actually do said job well. We definitely wouldn't throw out. I would not go to these guys and tell them they're going to make $250 million annually. I can probably in the MAC. I can promise you that. So
I don't. Where do you even get that number? Where do you even get
that? I read it and researched it twice, and I was like, there is no, and he said it. This is a quote from the president, and I'm like, there is no way he actually believes this. No way.
See, I must have just glossed over that or had terrible sources that I had, but I didn't even see that.
It was crazy to me. I mean, it was a comment from his press conference about the whole thing, and a lot of it was just him marketing and branding the whole move. But when I read that, I said, no, okay, I read that wrong. This was typed wrong. That there's no way that's what was actually said. And yeah, and it was. I mean, just craziness. I don't know. He got sold a bill of goods on that one, I think. So.
Maybe they meant $2.50.
That would make more sense to me, because it was like $5 or $975 million over 5 years or whatever. And I was like, no way. There's just no way in hell that happens.
Hey, I mean, it's good. It's good for the MAC. They get to promote their conference and those teams, and the TV deal. They get to strike it in the 20th best media state in the country. So that's right. For the MAC, it's good promotion.
Yeah, and both parties understand that this is not going to be a long-term partnership. I believe from what I've read is that it's going to be a 5-year agreement for Sacramento State to be a part of the MAC, right? So. This is not like Sacramento State is looking to make this a permanent home by any means. They're looking to join Pac-12 or the Mountain West, but looking to prove themselves first. So, I mean, Sacramento State, they're going to really have to prove themselves, because if they can't compete in the MAC, the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are not going to take them in, and who knows if the MAC would want to keep them long-term. So then you end up with almost a UMass situation where they're kind of shifting out into the woods as an independent for a while before eventually landing in another conference again.
And it's obviously they got the money. I mean, I think that's the big thing. They can get portal guys. Sacramento's a great place to be. I'm sure. I've never been out to the West Coast out there that far, but I mean, I know that kids want to go out there. I know that people want to be on that side of the country. So, I mean, I can see them recruiting well and getting some talent out there. It just depends on if they can make it happen on the field. And if they can't make it happen on the field, do we see them leave the FBS in 5 years after this deal is done? I mean, how does that look if they're left holding the bag at the end of this? I mean, that's going to be interesting to see as well.
I don't know if they would leave the FBS. I could see them do what they did in the FCS this past year. Just go independent. Just play a Notre Dame schedule. Just literally play whoever is available. honestly. But I mean, they're definitely going to have the biggest factor of travel spot when I'm looking at record projections and everything in a few months. I can tell you that they're going to have the biggest impact of any team.
Yeah, but if we do end up seeing, when we're looking at this 5 to 10 years from now, if we do see Sacramento State go down to the FCS, I wouldn't be fully surprised. It wouldn't be completely unprecedented because we have seen this before, at least in my lifetime. So there was an actual 1-year stint where Florida A&M, the Radlers, one of your HBCUs, like longtime SLAC conference affiliated team, they were an FBS independent for 1 year, but then they realized quickly, hey, we don't think that we have the resources to maintain an FBS level program. So they went right back down to the FCS after a year or two. So not saying that it will happen to Sacramento State because we truly don't know. We're in pretty unprecedented waters. We haven't seen anything like this before where we've seen that much money thrown out to join one of these bigger conferences. But if that does happen, it wouldn't be even completely unprecedented because we have seen this before with Florida A&M.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that people, for whatever reason, look down on that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with knowing your place and knowing where you're at. I mean, I respect that decision. I respect that move. I think it's good for the universities. I don't necessarily respect moving up just to move up, just to spend a ton of money for the hopes that it works out. I get trying, but my thing is just be a North Dakota State, be somebody who's winning championships, be somebody who like literally can compete at the FBS level. And we know they can compete day one at the FBS level. Don't just spend $23 million and I don't know, hope something sticks. It just doesn't seem like a great move in my opinion, but
I agree.
Yeah. So it's been an action-packed night here for sure, but hey, I'm still excited to see Sacramento State play this fall. Very, very excited to see what their team is going to look like, previewing them into March and putting them a little bit deeper in July as well. And just seeing how they do against MAC competition and what their non-conference schedule is going to look like. I'm also excited about, we still have Pac-12 After Dark coming back. We're still back, boys. And I think we're all excited for that. It's been a jam-packed show, and it's certainly been a pleasure here tonight. Hosting College Football Red Zone on this Full Springs Monday night. Boys, y'all have any last thoughts before we sign off here tonight?
Read for commissioner, I guess. That's the thing.
I guess this is the start of my campaign. Right.
Just bring us in. We'll get some stuff happening, the three of us here.
Yeah, we'll get the banner and everything like moving forward, Reed. But hey, with that being said, this is your main host, Jacob, College Football Red Zone, signing off with Reed and AT as my co-host joining in. Appreciate you guys coming through and listening to the live show. And if you guys have any burning questions for the mailbag, definitely make sure you leave a question for the mailbag down below. We'll definitely talk about anything. It doesn't even have to be college football related. It could even be about life. There's a surprising amount of life experience between just us three. And this is not even the whole squad. We still got a couple of people that are lurking in the shadows, looking for an opportunity to hop back on again. But hey, with that being said, appreciate everyone coming through on the live show. Hope you guys are all out there having a good night. Y'all take care, everybody.
Peace.